All right, 51. It is wonderful when there is a wide interval of distinction betwixt learned and illiterate, and acting how little difference there is in judgment, for art being derived from nature appears to have affected nothing at all if it does not move and delight nature. And there is nothing which so naturally affects our minds as numbers and the harmony of sounds, by which we are excited and inflamed and soothed and thrown into a state of languor, and often moved to cheerfulness or sorrow, the most exquisite power of which is best suited to poetry and music, and was not, as it seems to me, undervalued by our most learned monarch Numa and our ancestors, as the stringed and wind instruments at the sacred banquets and the verses of the LII sufficiently indicate, but was most cultivated in ancient Greece, concerning which subjects and similar ones I could wish that you had chosen to discourse rather than about these puerile verbal metaphors. But as the common people notice, where there is anything faulty in a verse, so they are sensible of any lameness in our language, but they grant the poet no pardon. To us they show some indulgence, but all tactfully discern that what we have uttered has not its peculiar property and finish. The speakers of old, therefore, as we see some do at the present day, when they were unable to complete a circuit and, as it were, roundness of period, for that it is what we have recently begun, indeed, they're either sorry, either to affect or attempt. For that what we have recently begun, indeed, either to affect or attempt, spoke in clauses consisting of 3 or 2 words, or sometimes uttered only a single word at a time, and yet in that infancy our tongue they understood the natural gratification which the human ears required, and even studied that what they spoke should be expressed in correspondent phrases, and that they should take breath at equal intervals. 42. I have now shown, as far as I could, what I deem most conducive to the embellishment of language, for I have spoken of the merits of single words. I have spoken of them in composition. I have spoken of the harmony of numbers and structure. But if you wish me to speak also of the form and, as it were, complexion of eloquence, there is one sort which has a fullness but is free from tumor, one which is plain but not without nerve and vigor, and one which, participating of both these kinds, is commended for a certain middle quality. In each of these 3 forms there ought to be a peculiar complexion of beauty, not produced by the daubing of paint, but diffused throughout the system by the blood. And finally, this orator of ours is so to be finished as to his style and thoughts in general, that as those who study fencing and polite exercises not only think it necessary to acquire skill in parrying and striking, but also grace and eloquence of motion, so he may use such words as are suited to elegant and graceful composition, and such thoughts as contribute to the impressiveness of language. Words and thoughts are formed in almost innumerable ways, as is, I am sure, well known to you, but betwixt the formation of words that of thoughts there is this difference, that of the words is destroyed if you charge them, that of the thoughts remains whatever words you think proper to use. But I think that you ought to be reminded, although indeed you are agreeably to what I say, that you should not imagine there is anything else to be done by the orator. At least anything else, it produces a striking and admirable effect than to observe these 3 rules, which are, with regard to single words, to use frequently metaphorical ones, sometimes new ones, and rarely very old ones. But with regard to continuous composition, when we have acquired that smoothness of junction and harmony of numbers which I have explained, our whole style of oratory is to be distinguished and frequently interspersed with brilliant lights, as it were, of thoughts and of words. Butchered the shit out of that.